Bank and World Bank are providing $260 million to the affected countries to help them cope. Meanwhile, 2 American aid workers infected with the disease are showing signs of improvement after being treated with an experimental drug. Alan Buckner with the story.
Fears of contracting the disease are getting so acute in West Africa that health centers are closing down as medical workers are afraid to turn up for work. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has dispatched 50 experienced specialists to the region to help deal with the outbreak. Hundreds of troops have been deployed in Liberia and Sierra Leone to quarantine stricken communities. And with rising opposition to the burial of Ebola victims in neighborhoods around Monrovia, the Liberian government has ordered that all future victims be cremated. Screening at airports is extremely rigorous. Nigeria's Federal Airport Authority had earlier suspended the operations of A-Sky Airlines after the regional carrier took an Ebola-infected traveler in from Liberia. He died days later in a hospital in Lagos.
The airlines have been told they have a responsibility and they must adhere strictly to that responsibility. And that has to do with ensuring that all passengers boarding those aircraft on their point of departure do not have such an infection.
Meanwhile, a second American aid worker was flown to the U.S. aboard the same specially equipped plane that brought infected worker Dr. Kent Brantley back a few days ago. Nancy Wrightball, seen here with her husband, and Brantley are being treated with a new drug that's never been tested for safety in humans. Her son says they're showing signs of improvement.
By her just going through it, she may be able to help countless more through them being able to understand what's going on in her body and develop a cure.
Health authorities have said, however, that it's impossible to tell whether the treatment is the reason or they're just recovering on their own. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
The 3-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has gone into effect in the Gaza Strip. The truce, which started at 1 p.m. Hong Kong time, came ahead of talks in Cairo aimed at brokering a deal to prevent further violence in the month-long crisis. James Aitken is following the story.
The ceasefire allows Palestinians a brief return to normal life in a region where tragedy has become daily routine. Minutes before the ceasefire took hold, Hamas launched a barrage of rockets towards Israel. Palestinians say Israel also launched airstrikes in Gaza just before the truce. Israeli ground forces withdrew from the Gaza Strip ahead of the truce after announcing that their main objective of destroying cross-border infiltration tunnels was completed. Forces have now been redeployed in defensive positions outside Gaza, a non-negotiable term for Hamas. The withdrawal before negotiations on a longer-term truce allows Israel to end the conflict on its own terms, without negotiating with Hamas over new border arrangements in Gaza, such as opening the enclave's borders. Upcoming talks in Cairo will be crucial to avoiding a return to cross-border fighting in the future. Meanwhile, there is growing international alarm about recent Israeli strikes on UN shelters in Gaza.
The suspicion that militants are operating nearby does not justify strikes that put at risk the lives of so many innocent civilians.
Everything is legal, even if it doesn't look very palatable to certain journalists or indeed to people who watch the reports and who have no legal tools or no understanding of what this really means in legal terms.
But any path to the International Criminal Court to prosecute war crimes could also be a two-way street.
We're alleging that there's mounting evidence of war crimes by both sides. So when Israel fires indiscriminately in densely populated civilian areas, does so repeatedly, it looks like those are war crimes. When Hamas is lobbing indiscriminate rockets at Israeli civilian centers, those are war crimes too.
James Aiken, TVB News.
Ukraine is in talks with Moscow over the return of 311 of its troops and border guards who are in Russia. Ukrainian authorities say the soldiers were forced across the border during battles with separatist rebels. But a Russian border security official who numbered the Ukrainian troops at more than 400, said they deserted the Ukrainian army and were seeking asylum. Meanwhile, Ukrainian government forces recaptured a key railway hub near rebel-held Donetsk. Kiev has intensified its campaign against pro-Russian separatists and has made steady ground.
And still ahead in the news tonight. Lifeguards stage one-day strike at public swimming pools and beaches. Trial opens for man accused of murdering his parents. And a pre-season trophy for Manchester United.
You'll never find as long as
Friday, Ice Age 3 Dawn of the Dinosaur at 10 on Pearl's Friday Attractions.
肌膚細胞每日累積數以億計毒素 ，Dior 首支從根源針對細胞毒素生成，1 Essential 完美活膚要生素，剔除肌膚毒素，自我更生，陪效修護，綻放純正光彩，活膚新氣息，滿注生機力量，全新1 Essential 完美活膚要生素。
Photogram 生活品味相片，快圖美。
FIFA U20 Women's World Cup 2014 Live opening match Canada vs Ghana Wednesday morning at 7:55 on Pearl.
And a warm welcome back to TVB News. Hundreds of lifeguards went on strike today over a dispute involving pay and manpower. The lifeguards have urged the government to improve pay and benefits to try to attract more people to the profession. This Yoon reports.
Because of the strike, lifeguard services at Butterfly Beach in Tuen Mun and Anglers Beach in Chin Wan were suspended. As for public pools, the Sham Shui Po Park swimming pool was among those that closed temporarily. A number of other facilities were partially opened, including Hammer Hill Road swimming pool in Wong Tai Sin. This father says he would pay attention to his kids without the presence of lifeguards. This girl says she hopes the lifeguards would be paid more. A manpower shortage, low pay, and an increasing number of swimmers are among their top concerns. About 350 lifeguards took part in the one-day work stoppage. A number of lawmakers pleaded support for the campaign. The union says there will be a pay hike for seasonal staff next year from about $13,000 a month to $14,000. But the union says that's thousands of dollars less than, say, ambulance workers.
That's why it's not easy to recruit more new people to join in the lifeguard team.
Kwok also said inadequate manpower means the ratio of lifeguards and swimmers has increased. And he pointed out that swimmers from the mainland gave them additional pressure.
Their behaviors is different from the Hong Kong people. So we have to do a lot of work for it. So to tell them not to do something at the pool or the beaches. So it's quite a lot of pressure for us to do that.
Still, Kwok stressed all are welcome at local pools and beaches. The union handed in a petition to the government.
The lifeguards brought along this prop T-shirt, which says technician, to sum up their plight. They insist that life-saving is an individual profession and that they deserve a higher salary than just a general technician.
The union is not ruling out further action if its demands are not met. The Leisure and Cultural Services Department, for its part, has apologized to those affected by the strike. Liz Yun, TVB News.
To the debate on political reform now. The Medical Association told Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam that it would like to see at least 4 candidates running in the 2017 chief executive election. Joao de Silva reports.
Carrie Lam continued to meet with various groups ahead of a decision later this month by the National People's Congress Standing Committee. Today, the Medical Association presented her with results of a survey conducted among 1,500 of its members earlier this year. More than 70% of the doctors who responded said they support Hong Kong's constitutional development, which should progress in accordance with the Basic Law and relevant NPC decisions. And more than half said they do not support the Occupy Central campaign. But that's not all, as the doctors seem to have clear ideas of what universal suffrage should look like in 2017. Potential candidates need to be endorsed by 1/8 of the nominating committee members to run in the CE election. As for the maximum number of candidates,
according to more than 50% of our members, the number will be 4 or more than 4 candidates for the people of Hong Kong to choose.
The doctors also expressed concern that as time runs out to reach a consensus, discussions are becoming sidetracked by groups expressing support or opposition to civil disobedience action. Meanwhile, the Alliance for Peace and Democracy has come up with yet another activity in its campaign against Occupy Central.
Basically, Hong Kong people love to run. So this is an opportunity for them to do 2 things at the same time to show that, number one, they support peace and democracy, they support universal suffrage. And secondly, they can participate in a good run.
Participants will be running from Victoria Park to Chater Garden on the morning of August 17th before the Alliance holds its rally later that day. Joao de Silva, TVB News.
The trial of a 29-year-old man accused of murdering his parents last year opened at the High Court today. The trial of Henry Chow and his friend, Tse Chun Kei, is expected to last 17 days. A 7-person jury was selected today. The 2 defendants have denied murder charges